Hey, what's going on, guys? The other day, UFC President Dana White announced 3 title fights for the first quarter of 2024. At UFC 297 in January, you have Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. In February at UFC 298, you have Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. And in March at UFC 299, you have Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera 2. And honestly, this kind of created a lot of buzz. There's a lot of people excited for these title fights. I am here to tell you that Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera 2 is an absolute disgrace. I have seen people cheerleading Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, and in the same breath, cheerleading Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera 2, which is an absolute sham and a disgrace of a bantamweight title shot. I've seen people losing their minds at the potential Dricus du Plessis may get skipped over by Khamzat Chimaev or Israel Adesanya. But yet, everyone's happy now, myself included, because I want a meritocracy. I'm happy we're getting Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. But I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy of the fan base. And honestly, the UFC didn't even do Dricus a solid, but we'll talk about that in a second. You have people cheerleading Dricus getting his rightfully deserved title shot. And then in the same breath, they're like, yeah, I'm hyped for Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. This is a perfect fight. It's a disgrace. There are multiple contenders who deserve a title shot more than Marlon Vera, and it's the special treatment of Sean O'Malley because Dana White in the UFC is trying so hard to build him into this superstar that he's not even there yet, but the UFC and Dana White likes to sell wolf tickets and say he's already a massive star, and O'Malley's saying he's going to be the biggest name in the sport. I find that hard to believe, but this title shot is an outright disgrace, and it's even worse than I could have ever imagined because originally when this was discussed, Sean O'Malley defeated Aljamain Sterling, UFC 292? That was back in August. He said, I want to fight Marlon Vera in December. And my take with an undeserved title shot, if it's going to happen, make it happen quick. Make it be a quick turnaround. At least if you're given an undeserved title shot, 2-3 months max. Now we're drawing it out from August to March. So you're literally talking 7 months, and then you're handing over an undeserved title shot to Marlon Vera, who is 1-1 in his last 2 fights. You look at Marlon Vera's resume, and it's just, a win over Pedro Munoz in his last fight. The fight before that, a dominant loss to Cory Sandhagen. I know technically it's a split decision. It's not a split decision. That judge was smoking meth. This is a disgraceful title shot. He does not deserve this fight. There's no universe that he deserves this fight, but the UFC is so desperate to protect Sean O'Malley. They've been protecting him almost his entire career. You look at his resume, he basically has one good win on his resume, and that's Aljamain Sterling. And I know people are going to say, what about Petr Yan? He lost the fight to Petr Yan. I'm not going to sit here and argue it. He lost that fight to Petr Yan. I don't care what anyone says. You look at the rest of his resume, every single one of his wins, they are no longer in the UFC. So he has 2 wins against guys who are currently in the UFC, because the UFC babied him all the way up until they threw him to Petr Yan. He gets gifted a decision over Petr Yan. They give him a title shot. He beats Aljamain Sterling. Fair enough. Sean O'Malley is one of the best in the world. He proved it against Aljamain Sterling. He finished Aljamain Sterling. But now, and this is why I didn't want Sean O'Malley to become champ, he's not going to fight rightful contenders. And after he beats Marlon Vera, if he does beat Marlon Vera, he's going to be, I want to blue box, And I know everyone's, waving their finger at Francis Ngannou. Look, he set the precedent. Sean O'Malley's already planting those seeds. But it's disgusting to me that Marlon Vera is one of my favorite fighters. He's arguably my favorite bantamweight fighter. It's disgusting to me that you have multiple other contenders that you would give a title shot to. Right now, Cory Sandhagen's on a 3-fight winning streak. Beat Rob Font in his last fight. Beat Marlon Vera in the fight before that, which was only in March of 2023, so not that long ago. So in a 1-year span, you're going from getting dominated by Cory Sandhagen to a title shot. You won 1 fight. And he could have arguably lost to Pedro Munoz. I think that's a bit of a stretch. But you get my point. It's not like he went out there and had a crazy performance and sweet chin music, Pedro Munoz, and KO'd him. The fight before that for Cory Sandhagen, beat Song Yadong via TKO doctor stoppage. That's an incredible win. This is an incredible 3-fight win streak for Cory Sandhagen. But even if you want to exclude Cory Sandhagen, Aljamain Sterling was a long-reigning champ. I understand the UFC hates him. I understand the UFC fans hate him. But he defended the belt, 3 times? He gets clipped by Sean O'Malley and gets finished. It's not like we saw the fight play out and he got dominated. He got clipped and he got finished. He deserves an immediate rematch. I don't necessarily want to see that, but I understand the UFC's hesitancy to do that, but at least he deserves an immediate rematch over Marlon Vera, who would literally easily get ragdolled by Aljamain Sterling. Then you look at the most deserving contender, and this is the one I hate the fans' perspective on, because you have Merab Dvalishvili, who's on a 9-fight win streak. He's arguably more of the UFC champion than Sean O'Malley is. He's on a 9-fight win streak. His last fight, he dominated Petr Yan. He dominated Petr Yan. And I know people will say, oh, he refused to fight Aljo. There was never a point in time where Merab was #1 contender and Aljo needed a title fight and Merab said, I'm not fighting Aljo. That literally never happened. That is a made-up storyline to discredit Merab. And I'm not some Merab huge fan, but it's disgraceful that people are like, well, he had his shot. Well, tell me when. Tell me when. Because Merab beat Petr Yan in March. We already had Aljamain Sterling's next 2 opponents. He was already scheduled to fight Henry Cejudo. The winner of that fight was already being scheduled to fight Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley was guaranteed a title shot after the win, the robbery win at UFC 280. So when did Merab turn down a title shot? Someone please let me know when he was offered a title fight, when it was available to him, and when he turned it down. That's what I would love to know. And this is just the history of the UFC over the last year, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And people only complain when it's a fighter they like. That's it. They wanted Dricus to get a title shot. They're like, oh, now how could you give it to Hamzat? And Dricus didn't even get, we didn't get Dricus the title shot. He didn't get it because he deserved it. He got it because the UFC was scrambling for a main event in January. Sean Strickland already came out and said, I didn't want to fight in January. But they were scrambling for a main event. They were like, oh, what are we going to do? We're going to give Canada a sack of shit for a main event? No, they were like, okay, we got to get Sean Strickland in there. He'll turn around real quick for a paycheck. And Dricus is ready to go because he hasn't fought since July. Let's just make that boom. Let's put it together. It's not like they were like, oh, let's give Dricus his much-deserved title shot. They were ready to give it to Hamzat. Hamzat injured his hand, and they want Hamzat to be champ. They just like they want Sean O'Malley to be champ, they want Hamzat Chimaev to be champ. They've wanted him to be champ since 2020 when they were booking him against Leon Edwards over and over and over again. I've talked about that ad nauseum. But Dricus only got the shot because they were like, we need a quick turnaround. We need a main event for January. That's it. But you look at the history of the UFC over the past year, and this has drove me nuts. And a lot of fans cheerlead this type of behavior. UFC 296, which is coming up next month. Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. Colby Covington does not have a win over a ranked contender on his resume. He barely has wins over UFC fighters who are still on the roster. He's 2-2 in his last 4 with 2 losses in title fights. In no way, shape, or form does he deserve a title shot. He's getting a title fight. And he's not even a draw, which people used to claim. Oh, he's a draw, that's why he's getting it. And there's multiple other contenders. Bilal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Pretty much everyone in the welterweight division deserves a title fight more than Colby Covington. Colby's been sitting out for almost 2 years. By the time he's going to fight for the belt, 1.5 years, I think it is. So you have that fight. You have the Strickland getting a title shot against Israel Adesanya. They skipped over Dricus for Strickland. Regardless how people want to say, oh, the circumstances, this and that, Strickland jumped over Dricus to get a title shot because the UFC just made that their timeline. You know, people say, oh, it's the circumstances, this and that. No, that's not what happened. They said, okay, we don't want Dricus to get a title shot because he's not willing to turn around quick, so we're going to skip over him. We're going to give it to Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland pulled it off. Don't get me wrong, he pulled it off. But the UFC gets away with this time and time again with these undeserved title shots. And it's just disgraceful. How do we have a guy in Merab that's on a 9-fight winning streak who beat Petr Yan dominantly in his last fight, the only guy to dominate Petr Yan, the only real loss on Petr Yan's resume? And that's a bit of an exaggeration. I'm kidding around there. Don't take that to heart. But what I'm saying is Yan arguably won the Aljamain Sterling fight where he, not the DQ fight. He was winning that fight and got DQ'd, but the second fight, he arguably won that fight. He could have still been champion. He definitely beat Sean O'Malley, so that could have been a title defense. And then he loses cleanly to Merab. That is the best win in the division right now. Merab beating Petr Yan and dominating him. Meanwhile, you're protecting Sean O'Malley. Because what's really going on here is the UFC is trying to build Sean O'Malley into a star. And they're looking at Marlon Vera. They're looking at Merab Dvalishvili. They're looking at a potential Aljamain Sterling rematch. They're looking at Cory Sandhagen fight. At Cory Sandhagen that grappled like crazy in his last fight and also is known for his elite striking. They're looking at all this sea of bantamweight contenders, and they're like, all right, who's most likely to lose to Sean O'Malley? And it's Marlon Vera. I mean, he's the easiest win for Sean O'Malley. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. This may backfire on the UFC. But then that just ruins the division. We're giving undeserved title shots, and now the undeserved contender wins. And now, okay, what are we going to have, a rematch now? It wouldn't shock me if they give Sean O'Malley a rematch. But Marlon Vera has a win over Sean O'Malley, so they're like, oh, this is a great story. This is a great story. Sean O'Malley, is avenging his loss from 2020. What need I remind you? People act like, oh, Sean O'Malley was dominating that fight. This fight was a 50-50 fight for the 3 minutes that it lasted. And then Marlon Vera brutally chopped the legs of Sean O'Malley, shucked him to the ground, and then flash KO'd him multiple times with brutal ground and pound elbows. And then Sean O'Malley was stretchered out of the cage with no serious injury. Okay? Marlon Vera destroyed him. It was not O'Malley was clearly winning. I know a lot of people push that narrative. I've been dispelling that narrative since I literally started the channel. But because of this narrative, because of this backstory, because the UFC thinks, oh, this is perfect for pay-per-view buys, plus they're looking at Sean O'Malley like, we want to keep him as champion as long as possible because we think we can really promote him into a star. This is why they're doing it. And who knows what's next? I mean, they're going to skip over Merab. They're going to skip over Cory Sandhagen. Either one of those options would have been perfect. And Cory Sandhagen was saying, he's disappointed it's happening in March because he wants to get in there and fight. I know he had the injury. I know he had to have surgery or whatever. He's probably ready to go in early 2024. I wouldn't have had as big of a problem with this if this happened in December because at least you're not holding up the division for a long period of time for an undeserved title shot. It's just like Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington that pisses me off. That fight was talked about for July. It's not happening until December. So now we waited from March to December to give an undeserved title shot to a guy who's been in witness protection. And we're doing the same thing here, and we're doing it in the heavyweight division too. John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, which was supposed to take place this weekend, but you had Jones who won the title in March. Stipe's been sitting out for damn near 3 years. He's getting a title fight in November. There was talks of that fight happening in July as well, but it never materialized. It's happened in November. John Jones gets injured. He pulls out. They're doing an interim title fight between Sergey Pavlovich, Tom Aspinall. And now they say, oh, we're still going to book Jones versus Stipe in 2024. Keep in mind, Jones isn't going to be ready to return until summer at the earliest. So we're giving Stipe a damn near 4-year layoff a title fight. And I know some people don't like to complain about certain fights. Oh, I'm happy we're getting Leon Colby because we don't like Bilal, he's not exciting. Or we don't like Merab, he's not exciting. But what happens when it happens to a fighter you actually like? Then you complain like Dricus du Plessis, you complained. He only got it just because of pure timing. That's it. The UFC wants Khamzat to be champion. They want to give Khamzat a title shot. I guarantee you that. They just needed a main event for Canada. They keep doing this time and time again. The UFC's becoming WWE with title shots. I understand it's not a meritocracy. I understand there's a gray area sometimes when it comes to title shots. But the fact you have Marlon Vera, who's 1-1 in his last 2 fights, and in one of those fights, which was not that long ago, he got absolutely dominated by Cory Sandhagen, who's on a win streak against legit competition. Meanwhile, Marlon Vera is currently ranked number 6. Since when are we giving title shots to guys who are ranked number 6? I know the rankings really have no credibility. Blood and Sweat and Honolulu 93.3. If you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, seriously, number 6 contender, we're giving him a title shot just because, oh, he flash KO'd the champion 3 years ago. It makes absolutely no sense. And we have to push back against this because Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera is an absolute disgrace. It should not happen. And the fact that now we're waiting till March for it to happen, we're looking at late 2024 before Sean O'Malley actually defends his belt against a legitimate contender. And honestly, I love Marlon Vera. I hope he wrecks the entire UFC's plan. I hope he goes out there and stops Sean O'Malley in this fight. I don't suspect he will. I favor Sean O'Malley to win this fight. But this isn't an easy fight for those people who's probably thinking I'm saying this is an easy fight. No, it's not an easy fight for Sean O'Malley. But it's the easiest of the potential options. If you look at Cory Sandhagen, you look at Merab, and you look at Marlon Vera, and you look at Aljamain Sterling, you want to throw him in there too. And in your mind, you come up with percentages. Okay, who's most likely to lose to Sean O'Malley in a title fight? It's Marlon Vera for sure. Everyone would pick Marlon Vera. So that's what the UFC is doing here. They want to keep Sean O'Malley champion as long as possible. Why do you think they stacked the deck against Aljamain Sterling? They gave Sean O'Malley from October to August, almost a damn year to prepare for Aljamain Sterling. Meanwhile, they made Aljamain Sterling turn around after a 5-round hard-fought fight against Henry Cejudo, which took place in May. They made him turn around and fight in August when he has a tough weight cut. So they stacked the deck already in Sean O'Malley's favor for that fight. He wins the belt. He goes out there and proves everyone wrong, gets a KO. Everyone was doubting him in that fight. Fair play to him. A round of applause for him. And now they're going to baby him even more as a champion because they're so desperate to build some stars. They know, oh, Sean O'Malley, he's got the weird tie-dye hair and he smokes weed. Oh my God, he's so edgy. I'm going to run out and get myself a pair of tube socks with marijuana leaves on them, and I'm going to go get a vape as well while I'm at it. That's what they're thinking. They're like, oh, all these 15-year-olds, they love Sean O'Malley, and that's what we're really promoting our sport to. That's what we're doing. That's why we love the Nelk boys and all this and that. And it's just ruining the sport. These undeserved title shots, I can stomach 1 or 2 of them a year, okay? When we're getting 5 or 6 of them, and that's a bit of an exaggeration, but when we're getting countless undeserved title shots time and time and time again, it's disgusting and it's disgraceful. And it's all the UFC giving Dana White privilege to Sean O'Malley. That's exactly what they're doing here. And somebody needs to call it out, because everyone's acting like this is okay. You know, everyone was going to be pissed if Hamzat got a title shot over Dricus, but now they're not even mad that Marlon Vera is skipping the line. And I understand everyone likes Marlon Vera. I like Marlon Vera. I've probably said it 4 times in this video alone. He's one of my favorite bantamweights, if not my favorite bantamweight. This is completely undeserved. I can't believe the fact that he's getting a title shot when literally less than 6 months ago he got dominated, or roughly 6 months ago. I think it was in March or April. So we're talking a little over 6 months ago. He got dominated by Cory Sandhagen. Outstruck, outgrappled, literally dominated. And now he's in a title fight because he had a razor-close decision with Pedro Munoz. Absolute disgrace. I hope UFC 299 falls apart. I hope Sean O'Malley or Marlon Vera is forced to withdraw from the fight. I think it's a disgraceful bantamweight title fight. I think there's multiple rightful contenders that you could give it to over Marlon Vera, and it should be Merab Dvalishvili. At UFC 299, we should be seeing Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili, and that's a banger matchup. And I still think Sean O'Malley could win that fight. I mean, he beat Aljamain Sterling. He can beat Merab. That is the fight to make. Why aren't we basing any title fights off of some type of semblance of meritocracy? It's disgusting. It's disgraceful. And quite frankly, I am tired of it. And I'm going to continue to call it out, even when a lot of the MMA community doesn't agree with me, because they only care when it's a fighter they actually like getting skipped over for a title shot. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.